It was after a trip through Philadelphia's Kensington neighborhood that author Liz Moore began noting the devastating impact that opioids had on our community. Years later, her novel about a killer targeting sex workers during the opioid crisis is receiving amazing reviews. The book is called Long Bright River. Oprah Winfrey's magazine ranks the novel #1 on her 16 of the best books to read this January. Meanwhile, Glamour magazine calls it a thriller on a Philadelphia block caught in the vise of opioid addiction. Liz Moore joins us this morning to discuss, and it's a big deal that we have her here because she's been traveling all over talking about this book. How are you?
I'm good. I'm a little tired, but I'm good.
I'm sure you've been a little bit of everywhere. I know I've been trying to track you down for a few weeks now, and you're finally back home.
Yeah.
Talk about the novel. So you told me you've been doing work in Kensington for about a decade now. When did you first decide maybe this is something I want to write about?
So like many families in the U.S., my family has a history of addiction. So it's something that I have a little bit of an autobiographical pull toward. But when I moved to Philly 11 years ago and first went to Kensington as part of a photojournalism project, I thought maybe there was enough material there for me to write a whole novel about it.
And in writing it, did you find some healing in dealing with your own personal story that's tied to it?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, everybody's story is unique. This is a work of fiction, so it's not based on any one family in particular, including my own. But it's always cathartic for me to write about certain things, and this was no different.
When you saw your name and this book title on so many lists, getting such high acclaim, what'd you think?
It's certainly rewarding when readers start to engage with the work, and especially because I'm hearing from a lot of people who have stories of their own, either people struggling with addiction themselves or people who are adjacent to people with addiction, have family members. So there's a balance between wanting to be happy and engage with readers and also recognizing that the book deals with some pretty serious subject matter, so celebrating doesn't really feel like the right word, if that makes sense.
Completely understand that. You've done this 4 times. This is your 4th novel. What makes this one a little bit different than the ones you've done in the past?
Well, it's my first book set in Philadelphia, where I've lived for over a decade. I have a lot of connections to this area. My husband's family is from this area. He grew up nearby. It's also the first book that I've written that's been marketed or positioned specifically as a thriller or a mystery. So it's the first book I've written explicitly as kind of like a page turner, if that makes sense.
Although, was that tougher for you to write since it was different than what you've done in the past?
Yeah, that too was a careful balance between wanting to engage with really important social issues, the ones that I have kind of a personal investment in, and wanting also to tell a good story. And I think the way I approached it was to remember that I believe that human beings have a natural instinct to want to listen to good stories and maybe are able to engage with some of the bigger questions around addiction through following a story.
You are a professor at Temple University. You teach creative writing. Do any of your books ever come into your curriculum?
No, I've never been bold enough to assign one of my own books in a class I'm teaching. I'm not sure how instructive that would be because the conversation probably couldn't get as honest as it needed to be. But yeah, I love teaching at Temple. I teach in their MFA program in creative writing, and I think Temple's like a really good embodiment of everything that's great about Philadelphia that I love. Yeah.
How does it feel for you to know that you could be helping to inspire, the next generation of writers that can come up in our city?
Great. I hope I'm inspiring them. I think there's a lot to be inspired about living in Philadelphia. Philly itself has a long, really wonderful literary tradition, especially its poets have been really renowned over the years. And excitingly, I think right in this moment, it's also having a renaissance of a lot of fiction writers who are publishing work that's getting noticed. And so I hope that that's a good, positive thing for the city.
It's kind of cool when you travel, I think, sometimes, and you tell people that you're from Philly, the reactions that you get. I know you've been traveling a lot. Do you get that same reaction from people?
I am amazed not only by how far-reaching Philadelphia is. A lot of people have connections here, but the neighborhood of Kensington itself. I'll do a reading. I did a reading in Washington, D.C., in Boston, even over in London, and I said, does anybody have a personal connection to Philadelphia or Kensington? And hands always go up. So it's really a neighborhood within a city that has a lot of reach around the world, I think.
Yeah. It does. I can't wait to read it. It's next on my list.
Okay.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Lauren. I really appreciate being here.
Of course.